"Eh? I don't know. Perhaps you like her because she's got a grudge against men." That was probably one of his own reasons for liking Mrs. Dawes, but this did not occur to him. They were silent. There had come into his forehead a knitting of the brows which was becoming habitual with him, particularly when he was with Miriam. She longed to smooth it away, and she was afraid of it. It seemed the stamp of a man who was not her man in Paul Morel. There were some crimson berries among the leaves in the bowl. He reached over and pulled out a bunch. "If you put red berries in your hair," he said, "why would you look like some witch or priestess, and never like a reveller?" She laughed with a naked, painful sound. "I don't know," she said. His vigorous warm hands were playing excitedly with the berries. "Why can't you laugh?" he said. "You never laugh laughter. You only laugh when something is odd or incongruous, and then it almost seems to hurt you." She bowed her head as if he were scolding her. "I wish you could laugh at me just for 1 minute. Just for 1 minute. I feel as if it would set something free." "But," and she looked up at him with eyes frightened and struggling, "I do laugh at you. I do." "Never. There's always a kind of intensity. When you laugh, I could always cry. It seems as if it shows up your suffering. Oh, you make me knit the brows of my very soul and cogitate." Slowly she shook her head despairingly. "I'm sure I don't want to," she said. "I'm so damned spiritual with you always," he cried. She remained silent, thinking, "Then why don't you be otherwise?" But he saw her crouching, brooding figure, and it seemed to tear him in two. "But there, it's autumn," he said, "and everybody feels like a disembodied spirit then." There was still another silence. This peculiar sadness between them thrilled her soul. He seemed so beautiful with his eyes gone dark, and looking as if they were deep as the deepest well. "You make me so spiritual," he lamented, "and I don't want to be spiritual." She took her finger from her mouth with a little pop, and looked up at him almost challenging. But still her soul was naked in her great dark eyes, and there was the same yearning appeal upon her. If he could have kissed her in abstract purity, he would have done so. But he could not kiss her thus, and she seemed to leave no other way. And she yearned to him. He gave a brief laugh. "Well," he said, "get that French and we'll do some Verlaine." "Yes," she said in a deep tone, almost of resignation, and she rose and got the books. And her rather red, nervous hands looked so pitiful, he was mad to comfort her and kiss her. But then he dared not, or could not. There was something prevented him. His kisses were wrong for her. They continued the reading till 10 o'clock, when they went into the kitchen, and Paul was natural and jolly again with the father and mother. His eyes were dark and shining. There was a kind of fascination about him. When he went into the barn for his bicycle, he found the front wheel punctured. "Fetch me a drop of water in a bowl," he said to her. "I shall be late, and then I shall catch it." He lighted the hurricane lamp, took off his coat, turned up the bicycle, and set speedily to work. Miriam came with the bowl of water and stood close to him, watching. She loved to see his hands doing things. He was slim and vigorous, with a kind of easiness even in his most hasty movements. And busy at his work he seemed to forget her. She loved him absorbedly. She wanted to run her hands down his sides. She always wanted to embrace him, so long as he did not want her. "There," he said, rising suddenly. "Now could you have done it quicker?" "No," she laughed. He straightened himself. His back was towards her. She put her two hands on his sides, and ran them quickly down. "You are so fine," she said. He laughed, hating her voice, but his blood roused to a wave of flame by her hands. She did not seem to realize him in all this. He might have been an object. She never realized the male he was. He lighted his bicycle lamp, bounced the machine on the barn floor to see that the tires were sound, and buttoned his coat. "That's all right," he said. She was trying the brakes that she knew were broken. "Did you have them mended?" she asked. "No." "But why didn't you?" "The back one goes on a bit." "But it's not safe." "I can use my toe." "I wish you'd had them mended," she murmured. "Don't worry. Come to tea tomorrow, with Edgar." "Shall we?" "Do. About 4. I'll come to meet you." "Very well." She was pleased. They went across the dark yard to the gate. Looking across, he saw through the uncurtained window of the kitchen the heads of Mr. and Mrs. Leivers in the warm glow. It looked very cosy. The road, with pine trees, was quite black in front. "Till tomorrow," he said, jumping on his bicycle. "You'll take care, won't you?" she pleaded. "Yes." His voice already came out of the darkness. She stood a moment watching the light from his lamp race into obscurity along the ground. She turned very slowly indoors. Orion was wheeling up over the wood, his dog twinkling after him, half smothered. For the rest, the world was full of darkness, and silent, save for the breathing of cattle in their stalls. She prayed earnestly for his safety that night. When he left her, she often lay in anxiety, wondering if he had got home safely. He dropped down the hills on his bicycle. The roads were greasy, so he had to let it go. He felt a pleasure as the machine plunged over the second, steeper drop in the hill. "Here goes," he said. It was risky, because of the curve and the darkness at the bottom, and because of the brewers' wagons with drunken wagoners asleep. His bicycle seemed to fall beneath him, and he loved it. Recklessness is almost a man's revenge on his woman. He feels he is not valued, so he will risk destroying himself to deprive her altogether. The stars on the lake seemed to leap like grasshoppers, silver upon the blackness, as he spun past. Then there was the long climb home. "See, mother?" he said, as he threw her the berries and leaves onto the table. She said, glancing at them, then away again. She sat reading, alone, as she always did. "Aren't they pretty?" "Yes." He knew she was cross with him. After a few minutes he said, "Edgar and Miriam are coming to tea tomorrow." She did not answer. "You don't mind?" Still she did not answer. "Do you?" he asked. "You know whether I mind or not." "I don't see why you should. I have plenty of meals there." "You do." "Then why do you begrudge them tea?" "I begrudge whom tea?" "What are you so horrid for?" "Oh, say no more. You've asked her to tea, it's quite sufficient. She'll come." He was very angry with his mother. He knew it was merely Miriam she objected to. He flung off his boots and went to bed. Paul went to meet his friends the next afternoon. He was glad to see them coming. They arrived home at about 4 o'clock. Everywhere was clean and still for Sunday afternoon. Mrs. Morel sat in her black dress and black apron. She rose to meet the visitors. With Edgar she was cordial, but with Miriam cold and rather grudging. Yet Paul thought the girl looked so nice in her brown cashmere frock. He helped his mother to get the tea ready. Miriam would have gladly proffered, but was afraid. He was rather proud of his home. There was about it now, he thought, a certain distinction. The chairs were only wooden, and the sofa was old, but the hearthrug and cushions were cosy, the pictures were prints in good taste, there was a simplicity in everything, and plenty of books. He was never ashamed in the least of his home, nor was Miriam of hers, because both were what they should be, and warm. And then he was proud of the table. The china